So the interesting thing that this group did with Dr. Dunbar is the way that they tested for these people who went to the comedy clubs is they had them do a wall sit because they found out that if you measured what's called endogenous hormones, those are our natural opioid painkiller hormones, that you can perhaps endure more discomfort. So, what they did is they had them do a wall sit prior to the show and then a wall sit for after the show. And guess what? They basically were able to do the wall sit longer and tolerate the discomfort of doing a wall sit for a longer period of time than when they had before the show. So it's not really hard data like a blood work, but it's definitely encouraging that if you're able to have a good belly laugh, that it does potentially help you just in general. Another thing that was really very interesting is that a team in Finland in 2017, they put people in a PET scanner. And this too it confirmed that this mechanism of making endogenous opioid releases in the brain showed up in the thalamus and the caudate nucleus and in the insula when they examined it through a PET scan. You released your own opioids by laughing. Fascinating, right? But here's the really fascinating thing: the heart. So there's a layer of tissue in the heart that is inside of every blood vessel that you had. It's called the endothelium. And it's not a passive type of lining. It's an active tissue that regulates blood flow. It controls clotting. It responds to injury and inflammation. And it's where the atherosclerosis begins, where we have hardening of the arteries. It all starts in the endothelium. Dr. Michael Miller at University of Maryland and his colleagues did something very simple. They took healthy volunteers and they showed them two kinds of movies. One designed to make you laugh and one designed to really stress you, like a harrowing war movie. And they measured blood flow before and after each show. And guess what? He went on to accumulate more than 300 measurements and found that, fascinatingly, a 30 to 50% difference in the blood vessel diameter between the laughter group and the stress group. That's remarkable, 30 to 50%. And his own description of how this change was so large and that it was consistent and similar to the benefit you might see with aerobic exercise or taking a statin. Interesting, right? That you're increasing your blood circumference by laughing. But I want to be careful because it's not going to be the end all to everything. We're not going to walk through the day laughing. But basically, it is something quite remarkable that 10 to 15 minutes of laughing would help your vascular response in the same way as a cardiovascular drug does. Now, granted, the drug is happening all the time. Your laughter is only happening for a little while. But I think that this is a lot. This is really helping us, and it gives us an idea about this concept of humor. There's an additional finding that happened when, in an earlier study, they gave this questionnaire to 300 people, half of whom had a heart attack or had bypass surgery, and half who had no heart disease. And they asked things like, you show up at a party and someone is wearing exactly what you're wearing. How funny is that? 1 to 5. So they asked these questions to these patients, and guess what? It really helped them understand that you're 40% less likely to find things funny if you have heart disease. And if you can find things funny, that basically you might be able to reduce your heart disease. So situations that funny, it can be correlational sometimes, but that's still very soft data. But I think what we have to understand is that anything that we understand about laughter and humor is it makes us feel good. And it gives us an idea of how we can help ourselves as we get older, because depression is huge and it's not something that's easy to fix, but we know that exercise helps it. But maybe we need to do things that help us laugh a little more. And what does that mean? Because I think everybody finds things funny differently. What would laugh therapy look like? And what would it happen? That's something that they're really looking at. And the Norway study, which is the biggest study of all of this issue, it's called the Nord Trøndelag Health Study, or HUNT. Essentially, an entire country surveyed and then followed for decades. Researchers there asked 53,556 people a set of questions about their sense of humor. And then they followed them for 15 years and they recorded who died and what they died of. Now, here is what makes this study so fascinating. They did not treat sense of humor as one thing. They separated into three components: a social component. Do you use humor with other people? There is also what they call the affective component. How does humor make you feel? And then the cognitive component, which is the interesting one. How readily do you actually perceive that something is funny? The capacity for you to see humor in certain things and situations. And they found something I didn't expect. So let me tell you what this means. It said that in women, high scores on the cognitive component were associated with 48% lower of all-cause mortality, 73% lower of cardiovascular mortality, and 83% lower infection-related mortality. In men, the infection-related finding held. The all-cause finding did not. So it's very interesting because it was not about how much you laughed, and it was not about being the funny one or being the person who made other people laugh. It was about how readily you can find things to be funny that are happening to you. So perception, not performance. And the researchers described it in their own framing as a health protective cognitive coping resource. Coping, that it is a psychology word and it's the right one. That they have measured is not humor at all. In fact, it's a particular way of processing maybe difficult things. And one other detail from this study, which I think is very interesting, is that the association between the cognitive component and the all-cause mortality was present up about till age 85. And then after that, it faded. Researchers do not fully know why that happened, but it may be that sometimes at a certain age, our biological clock simply overwhelms our coping methods. But I think that's certainly very encouraging about this idea about living in the moment and finding ourselves a perception of humor. So if I stop this episode right now, I would be doing exactly what I have spent this entire channel refusing to do. So let me be honest about the limits of what these studies show. Mortality was a finding about women, that women and all-cause mortality and cardiovascular results were significant in women and not men. And we don't know why that is. And anyone that understands the Hunt study that humor makes you live longer, that's not real. It's observational. People who really find things funny may simply be healthier to begin with, or less depressed, or better connected to social connections, or maybe they have a certain perception about life, but it may not be the real cause. And also this issue about vascular studies, it's very fascinating that these people had better vascularity, the increase in the diameter of their vessels. That's nothing to make you replace your medicine. And the magnitude to it is not constant, but it definitely does help. Why not? Help our behavior and help our drugs along the way. And the type of trials that have been done with laughter, they're soft. They don't have really hard outcomes, but it does find an encouragement because in the wellness industry, which I'm part of, this idea that we can somehow do something about laughing and look at how children laugh 400 times a day while adults only laugh 15. That's very interesting, isn't it? I think that we really need to understand much more about how we can find more delight and humor in our lives. And that it would be nice to increase our laughter. And it's a joke that it basically, that this off-headed remark that was done in 1998, and it was repeated all the time. But the actual published research on adult laughter frequency, it lands nearly 17 times a day. So it's still not as many as children, but the matter is that we still are not laughing as frequently as children laugh throughout the day. And it's a shame. It's a shame that we don't find more ways to be delighted about our lives. So I think one of the things that we have to take away with this idea about laughing is real laughter, not polite laughter, but laughter that really makes you get tickled and you can't catch your breath or involuntarily just basically blazing away. This is truly phenomena that we have to seek out. And that if we have some type of depression, we need a sustained intervention. And of course, if you do have a friend that makes you laugh, that's something to look forward to. Make sure you have them more often in your life. And if you do have chronic pain, you can see laughter as a toolkit. Maybe you need to make sure you're watching more movies that make you laugh, read books that make you laugh, because you can elevate your own endorphins, your own opioids inside your body. It's not a treatment, but it definitely could certainly make you feel better. Ultimately, laughter is something that we don't normally get a prescription. And even if your doctor did say to you, I think you need to laugh more, how would we take that from your doctor? Are you out of your mind? And really, when I think about the comedy class, I didn't do it for any kind of thing. I did it because I literally wanted to do something that scared me, and that maybe I would somewhere in my 60s start to stop feeling like I could do things that scare me. And I think that's not any way to live. That's for me. But you may not feel this way. You may feel like you want to do things safe or you're too shy, and that's fine. But perhaps there are ways that you can do things. Maybe there's a famous movie that you enjoy that makes you laugh every time. Because really, laughter is tremendous. And if we can laugh or laugh with friends, it's a sound of someone that's doing things which is delightful. And it's never about maybe the joke that was told, but it's about the whole social construct. And I think that's really what's wonderful. It's free. It has no side effects. It doesn't require you to be able to do anything, and nobody's ever going to write it down for you. So consider this the prescription from a health psychologist who once bombed at Gotham Comedy Club and would absolutely do it again. Go out and explore, if nothing else, a place where you can laugh or do irrational things that turn out to be good for you. It's a natural process that we can do to help ourselves to find awe in the world. Take a 15-minute walk. Look for anything that you could look at and maybe laugh and chuckle about, perhaps certain things about your behavior. I think that to me would be tremendous. So remember, my friends, you have this one precious life. Let's live it to the fullest and be the very best version of who we are well into our 80s and 90s. Please think about subscribing and sharing and liking. It would mean so much to me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
So thank you so much for joining me at Healthy by George. I hope you found the information inspiring and that it encourages you on your wellness journey. Because remember, your body, your well-being are a most precious gift, and every tiny action taken daily can make a huge difference. I hope the information here is educational purposes and is not meant to replace your medical care. See your doctor and talk about what works for you. If you enjoyed today's content, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me, and it helps me continuing creating content that inspires and empowers you to live your best life. Goodbye for now, and join me again at the next Healthy by George.